Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica. Today is launch day for our September Stitchy and Quilty Pillows of the Month and our sticker packs. So I'll probably be saying this in every video here on out, but I can't believe it's already September. This year has flown by. I have been having so much fun with these pillows, and I hope you have been too. And the stickers have been so much fun to design each month. I've got them everywhere now, and I know a lot of you must be loving them because we have been selling a lot of those as well. So thank you so much for all of your support on the pillow patterns and on our sticker packs. Let's go ahead and dive right into today's video because I do have a couple tutorials for you today that are going to take a little bit longer. So we're going to start off with the sticker pack because that'll be quick and easy. So the stickers for this month are really cute. I went with a fall colored theme for these, of course. So I have some oranges and greens and tans, browns, and I think they all blended together really fun. And they have a little bit of a vintage vibe to them too, which I really enjoy. So our first sticker is going to be our sunflower block. And this is, of course, a mimic of what the quilt pattern and the Stitchy pattern look like. It's two different sunflowers with alternating colors, and they're just flipped upside down. They look really, really cute. The second one is going to be our little mug sticker, and this one says, "Bloom where you are planted." The third one is our scallop sticker with those cute little sunflowers inside. Of course, we had to do a sunflower tomato pin cushion. If you look closely, the tops of the pins are little baby sunflowers. I did a vintage sewing machine, and on our sewing machine is a cute little patchwork quilt, and then the name for this one is Sunny. And then we also have our vintage truck. This is the front angle truck. It's got a couple sunflowers in the back, and then it has the Sunny license plate on the front. So you get 6 stickers in the pack. If you have never gotten them before, they're all high quality, high color vinyl stickers. So they're perfect for water bottles, laptops, guitar cases. I have them on my sewing machine. I also have some on my computer monitor, have some on my water bottle, so they are a lot of fun. All right, let's move into our Quilty pillow for September. So here's our September Quilty pillow. It's those 2 sunflowers flipped upside down with each other. I used my leftover bloom fabric for this. I think it'd be really cute, obviously, in yellows and sunflowers, but I didn't have yellow in my bloom line and I really wanted to use it. So I just did a couple different oranges and that tan for the center. And then I did a couple different greens for my stems, and I just altered the colors. So you'll notice the outside of this sunflower is the inside of this one, and the outside of this one is the inside of this one. And then same with the leaves. So the stem and these leaves are the same color, and then the stem and the leaves. And I like doing that on quilt patterns because it makes it look scrappy, even though I really only had 2 different oranges and 2 different greens, but my pillow still turns out really scrappy and fun. For the background fabric, I did my low volume bloom print called Tan Baubles, and I've been using that on everything because I love it so much. And I don't know if we have any still left in our store. I think we might have sold out of that yardage. We do have a little bit of yardage left, actually, for a couple different prints in there. So if you were unable to get some, definitely check that out. As soon as that yardage is gone, we'll be marking that out of stock. So whatever is left is all that we have. The backing, I used my seed print again because I thought it was perfect for our little sunflower blocks. I love this line so much. It's so colorful and fun. And then for the binding, I actually used the green seed print, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do 2 of the same prints right next to each other, but I don't think you can even tell. And I cut the binding in such a way that it looks almost stripy. So I love that. And then I've got my Ever Emblem personalized label there. And it's just a little floral label. So when you get to everemblem.com, if you search for, I think it's like dainty floral or whimsical floral, something like that. If you search that, then those should pop up for you. So she has a lot of variations. But of course I did my envelope backing. And then like I just showed, I finished it off with some binding. So here is our pillow. They all finish at 20 by 20 if you're new to our sew along. So every month you can remove your pillowcase from your insert and then just reuse that insert, and then you can store these flat. I actually store mine rolled up in baskets. I think they look really cute that way. So they're part of the decor in my home, but also it's a great way to store them. And when you roll them like that, they don't get creases in them, but you could also store them flat as well. Okay, so that's what the pillow looks like. I do have a bunch of tips on how to put these blocks together since you've got a lot of things lining up here and we have a lot of snowballed corners. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert the video here on how to put this pillow together. I have a couple of tips for you on making this block go a little bit faster. You've got a lot of snowballed corners to deal with here. And so in order to make them go faster, I do what's called chain piecing. Chain piecing means that I am not cutting my pieces in between. You can see that these are all still attached. The other thing that I like to do after I've chain pieced a whole row like this is trim them all up at the same time as well. So I'm going to take my stitch line and I'm going to line it up with this line right here on my ruler and just make sure everything looks nice and straight. And then I'm going to take my ruler and place it on top of that line, lining up that 1/4 inch line on my ruler with the stitch line on all of my pieces. I will adjust any pieces that have moved when I placed my ruler down, just make sure everything's nice and straight. And then I'm going to take my rotary trimmer and trim them all off at one time. That really saves me a lot of time when working with these. I've done everything at once, and then now I can move on to the next step. I'm going to leave these attached just like this. I'm going to go back and attach this final corner. I'll do the same thing as far as cutting them all off at once, and then I'll go through and cut all of my little individual pieces apart, and then I'll trim them all up to size per the pattern, and then I will add them to the next step in my pattern. And that can make these little snowballed corner pieces go really fast. It also makes them more accurate if you're trimming up as you go. The other tip I have is to have some of this 1/4 inch seam tape on your machine. I do have a full tutorial on how to use this, but I'm basically, instead of having to draw diagonal lines on all my pieces, just take a couple stitches down there, then I line up my tip with my center stitch line, so, and I'm good to go. Again, I'm going to line up all my seams at one time, trim them off all at one time. I take the pieces off before I remove my ruler. It's a lot easier to get all the little extra bits off. And then now I can take this to my pressing board. These are still attached, and I can press them all back at the same time, and you can use a seam roller like this one. A lot of times I'll do this, so just making sure everything's nice and flat. I can also take this and press them all at once as well. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It depends on the situation, but that's a really fast and easy way to handle all of these snowballed blocks at one time. When you're done, you can just snip them all apart, trim them up, and you're ready to go. The next thing we're going to be doing is what's called strip piecing to make our lives a little bit easier. We have some pieces that need this same piece for every single one. So instead of cutting a bunch of pieces that are short and sewing them all together, I'm actually just going to sew 2 strips together. So just place these right sides together. We're going to sew down this edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it, and then we'll come back and trim off what we need. And that makes that little section a lot faster as well. Another quick little tip I will do is I will stack things that are getting cut the same on top of each other, and then that way I can cut 2 at once. So that makes that really fast and easy. So I tend to sew in batches, press in batches, and then trim in batches. And by doing it that way, you're sort of doing the same thing all at once. My iron is nice and hot for these, and I can just press them really quickly, trim them all at the same time, and then they'll all be ready to go. And so I just like to do things in batches like that. I'm using my Laura Star steam iron. It puts out a lot of steam, and it's just so nice. And I steam going forward and then just pull it back to dry that steam a little bit. And then I'm just going to let that set there. These guys, I can just set the seams on, and then I'll go ahead and press these as indicated in my pattern. And these leaves don't actually matter. You can press them any way you want because they aren't having to line up with anything. All right, and then all of these bits are ready to be trimmed up. So I'll trim them up, make sure they're super nice and square before I move on. I'm also going to trim these up as well. Whenever you do these little snowball corners, they can get a little bit wonky, so I always retrim the block to the original size that the block I started with was, and then make sure that everything is nice and squared up before I move on to the next step. Now for the strip piecing section, we piece this whole thing together, and then now we just need to trim it up into little bite-sized bits. And this is great if you're doing 9 patches or 4 patches or anything where you have to have a lot of the pieces that have the same size. I'm going to line up a ruler with my seam line and just trim off that edge so I have a nice clean edge, and then I can trim these down to whatever size I want. So if you're doing little 4 patches, you could trim them to 1.5, 2, whatever your pattern calls for. You can just trim these up really quickly, and then you'll have all those pieces made in no time. So now I have all of my complicated pieces made super fast. I just need to trim them all up, and then I can go ahead and put the quilt top together. So I've sewn my first 3 rows together, and I did chain stitch, so it's attached. You can cut those right now if you like. I'm not going to worry about it. The next tip I have for you is just to line up so that these points are nice and accurate. And the best way that I find to do that is to just make sure your seams are going opposite directions. So my inside seams were pressed out, my outside seams were pressed in, and then we just need to also make sure that we're sewing at a nice 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is just place this down, and I'm going to nest this first seam right here. So you can see right there that seam is nested. So I'll go ahead and place a pin right there. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is place a pin right here, so you can see our seam comes right here. So our point is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and place a pin right there. And then I'm also going to find a 1/4 inch in on here, and you can eyeball it or you can measure it. I'm going to just eyeball it, but I'm going to go ahead and press the pin there so that I know that that is lined up. And I'll do that on this one too. So again, I'm going to find this seam right here that we pressed in opposite directions. I'll go ahead and stick a pin there. And then again, I'm going to find my 1/4 inch point there and my 1/4 inch here. And again, I'm just eyeballing that. And then I've got my pin virtually standing straight up and down. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in place there. So now when I sew along this edge, all of these points should match up. And then I'll just do the same thing down here when I add this piece. And it looks like we did pretty good there. Those corners are lining up nicely. So I'm just going to do the same thing when I add this one so that all of my seams nest and my points line up. And there we go, all of our seams match up nicely. Now we just need to trim up this block and we're ready to put our pillow together. All right, so that is it for our quilty version. Let's take a look at our stitchy version. So one of you guys did a little boxed pillow for, I think it was the August one, and sent me a photo, and I loved it. And I've been asking for design ideas, so I asked if it was okay to share that, and she said yes. So for this month's pillow, we did a little boxy pillow. Look how cute it is. I love it so much. So here's the front, and of course it mimics what we did for our quilt pattern. I only used 2 of the different DMC floss colors for the oranges. I used 2 greens, and then I have some white and some tan in there. This one is stitched on Witchelt Beautiful Beige 14 count Aida, just like all of the other ones. And then for our side fabric, this is actually the same fabric I used on the binding for the pillow I just showed you. And then here is the same backing. So it turned out so cute. So I do have a little video tutorial for you showing you how to make this cute boxy pillow. So let's go ahead and insert that now. If you have a Laura Star steam iron, I think you'll find that this process goes really, really quick. With a normal iron, you have to let it sit there longer. I don't know, but with this one, I really just give it one pass and it's already fused, which is awesome. Okay, now that our pieces are fused, it's time to move on. And I'm going to do the stitched piece first because I'm going to have my seam. We have to leave our seam open so we can stuff it. I'm going to leave that on the bottom piece. That way we're not having to do a seam on our top piece. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our long panel. We're going to fold it right sides together. We're going to take this to the machine and sew down this edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I am going to backstitch at my stops and starts also just to give it a little bit of extra strength since we're going to be working around this piece twice. So now we have this loop, and you can press this open, you can press it to one side. I'm just going to press it open so that I distribute some of that bulk. And now I want to mark my corners. So I'm going to arrange my piece so that this is not in the middle because I want it to be more in the middle of one of these. And if this is a corner and this is a corner, then I don't want that on my corner. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm folding it in half just like this. And I am actually going to take my scissors. You could also mark these with pins, but I like to take my scissors and just cut a little slit almost to that interfacing that you did right there. So a little bit less than 1/4 inch. I'm going to do that on both sides. Just like that. And then I'm going to take those, I'm going to line up my little cuts that I just made and then just press it again there and here on the edges. And again, I'm going to just put a tiny little cut there. And those are going to mark my corners. They're also going to give me just a little bit of give in my fabric when we're going around the corners. But I just like to use that as a alignment for when we're adding this to our pieces. The next thing we're going to do is take our stitched piece and we're going to right sides together, line up these little cuts with those corners. And so what I like to do, you can see if we did it right, our cuts should be just equal with the length of that fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and place a pin there to keep it in place and a pin here. And you might even put a pin in the center. We just want to keep everything nice and lined up. I'm going to turn it and do the same thing. Again, line up those edges. Again, our cuts should line up pretty close to where our corners are. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around, again lining up those cuts. And hopefully everything lines up nicely. You might have just a little bit extra, and you can just ease that into the corner, so don't worry about it if it's not perfect. All right, and here we have our last one. Okay, so now that we're pinned all the way around, we're going to sew all the way around this perimeter using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'll show you how to handle these corners when we get to the machine. So we're going to start somewhere in the middle of one of our sides. I'm going to backstitch at my stop and start. We're going to sew down to this corner, this first corner. We're going to stop about 1/4 inch away. Just like that, and I can see this fold, so I don't want to sew over that fold. I'm going to lift my presser foot, go ahead and turn my fabric, and you can do one of two things. You can either press the fabric so it's like this, and you'll get kind of a mitered looking corner, or you can just press the fabric up so it's flat and just keep going. So here's what our piece should be looking like, and you just want to make sure that you got all of your fabric. And the other thing I like to do at this stage is just come through, and I'm just going to trim off my corners a little bit. It's just going to get rid of some of the bulk in those corners. Okay, and now leaving it just like this, we're going to do the same thing to add our backing. So again, right sides together. And you can see those corners a lot more now, but we still have our clips that we made when we first started. And so I'm going to line that up and pin around it just like I did the last one. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing we did with the other sides. We're going to sew all the way around. However, we do need to leave an opening somewhere. I do not want to leave the opening where this seam already is, because there's already going to be tension when we're trying to turn it out and stuff it. So just leave the opening on any other side than the side that has your seam on it. So I'm actually just going to go to the opposite side just to make my life easier. I'm going to change my pins out with a red stop and start pin. That way I know that this is the side I'm leaving open. So I'll start here, backstitch, go all the way around, and again backstitch here. Now when I'm sewing this one, I like to still have it so that my sides are up so that I can see these corners as I'm getting to them. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and move my start pin. I'm going to start right about there. Again, I'm going to backstitch at my stops and starts. I'm going to get this pin out of my way just because I'm coming to my first corner. So I'm going to sew all the way up to about 1/4 inch, or a little bit less, sorry, away from that corner. Leave my needle down, turn my piece, straighten out that side, that side and corner again, and keep going. Okay. And if you'd like, this one, it's not as big of a deal, but you can clip off these corners a little bit. Since it's just fabric, it's not going to take up too much space like the cross-stitch material. But you can clip those off. At this point, I do like to get a Hera marker or point turner, and I'll just run it around the inside edges just to make sure I don't have any holes anywhere. And I think we're good. The corners are going to be probably the areas where you may have missed a little bit. I think we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this right side out now, and just be careful. Just take it a little bit at a time. This is always the hardest part. And I don't like to mush my cross stitch too much, but you can steam it again if it gets too crazy on you. And then I like to roll these edges, and I just finger press them. You could also press them with an iron if you wanted. I'm also going to finger press this edge in because we are going to hand stitch that closed after we stuff it. So I just finger press it in 1/4 inch. All right, so here's what our little pillow is looking like. We just need to go ahead and stuff it and then sew it closed. All right, and that's it. It's super easy and fun. I love this so much, and I love that it's squishy. You could use the walnut shells in here instead of the pillow stuffing. I just did pillow stuffing because I have a bunch of it, but you could actually do that as well. And then you can keep your front side nice and clean, turn it over if you want to use it for pins or whatever. And I have quite a few right now. I don't know if you can see them. They're up here on this little shelf right here, but I think I might try and find a cute little bowl so I can just display them all in a fun little bowl. But anyways, here is our September Stitchy pillow. All right, guys, that is it for September. You can get all of the patterns and stickers that I've mentioned in today's video at my store at store.confessionsofahomeschooler.com. There will also be a link below this video as well. And then when you get to the front page, there should be an image right at the top for the pillows. You can just click on there, and if you look at my little sidebar, there should be a thing that says stickers. If you don't see that, you can just click the little search icon and you can search for September stickers or September pillow, and everything should pop up for you that way. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe. You can thumbs up the video and also hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming fun. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for all of your... I have them on my sewing machine. I have a couple on. That's so loud. That's my son's car. We have to wait for him to get a couple miles away before we can't hear his car.